International Museum Day is being marked across the globe today, coordinated by the International Council of Museums. The event highlights a specific theme that changes every year. Well, for more, we have on the line co-founder and CEO of the Liliesleaf Trust, that's Mr. Nicolas Wolpe. Good afternoon, Nicolas, and good to have you on the show.
Good afternoon, Koreshan. Pleasure to be on. Thank you very much.
Nick, you've always called Liliesleaf a centre of memory more than a museum. Tell us why.
Well, I think there is a number of reasons. I think, first of all, we must distinguish between a museum and a historical site, a place where things happened. Liliesleaf is really not a museum. It is a site of memory. It is a place where activities, dialogue and debates and discussions happen. It's where the raid took place. So you must draw a distinction between a site of memory and what I like to refer to as a man-made building where you put in artifacts, where you put in pictures, relics, statues and other things. So there are two very distinct roles that they play.
The role of museums and centres of memory coming into the fore very much now with this year's theme, Museums for Sustainable Society. How do you keep alive the fact that our heritage, in this case our rich liberation heritage, needs to be remembered and preserved?
Well, I think that is fundamental. That must be the starting point, that we must ensure that the rich heritage of this country, not just the liberation struggle, but the rich heritage that we have is preserved, maintained, enhanced, and promoted. For example, I've just come back from Dresden, and they have literally been rebuilding this city since the end of the Second World War, and it's continuing today because they recognize the importance, the historical significance of the buildings that were damaged, hold an incredibly important place within the memory of Dresden and also the historical or the museums, and they attract a lot of tourists. So that's something that they systematically go out to promote within the context of this notion of a sustainable role within economies and sustainable society. So they have an understanding on both levels the importance of their history and also systematically the importance that this history plays as an attraction for tourists to come and visit the city. And I think we can learn from that because it's important that we preserve all facets of our history, whether it's the relics and artifacts that are placed in museums or sites of specific memory like Liliesleaf Clip Town, the Hector Peterson Memorial.
Nicolas, you're also of the belief that a notorious place like Vlakplaas needs to be restored because it does tell of a particular aspect of our history, regardless of how painful and traumatic that may be. Tell us why.
Well, I think it's important. Again, I mentioned I was just come back from Dresden. I went to one of the concentration camps just outside Berlin, and it was an incredibly moving, incredibly emotional, incredibly draining experience. But it had a very important role to play in highlighting the brutality of Nazism and the brutality of what man can inflict upon man. It is a place, along with all the other concentration camps that exist, which keeps alive the fact that we cannot allow the brutality of man inflicting upon man such atrocities. And I think by bringing back Vlakplaas, that plays a very important role in ensuring that we do not allow ourselves in South Africa to slide back into that kind of abyss. As Nelson said in his inaugural address, never, never again.
Yes. Nicolas, very quickly before I let you go, let's talk about those colonial era statues in public spaces and all the controversy around that earlier on this year. Should they be moved into spaces like a museum or should they be left where they are? What do you make of it?
Well, I think what we need to do as part of the debate around the importance of our history and the role that the history plays in our society, we need to sit down and systematically discuss what we need to do with these memorials, because these memorials, for a lot of people, have a very powerful negative impact. I don't believe we should destroy them. I don't believe that we should lock them away. But I do believe that where they're currently located is inappropriate. And I strongly support this notion, which I believe the Minister of Arts and Culture has been advocating, that we create a purpose-built place where these statues are located so that they form part of our history, but they are not lost and forgotten.
Thank you. That was Nicolas Wolpe, CEO of the Liliesleaf Trust, on the line.